Welcome, my fiery Sagittarians, both the seasoned travelers who have been with me through countless cosmic storms and the newcomers who just stumbled into this curious corner of the universe we call Zodiac Talks Tarot. Take a seat, lighthearted or restless as you may be, because the message I'm about to share is no accident. In fact, nothing in your life right now is random, not the sudden urge that brought you here, not the strange restlessness in your chest, and certainly not this exact moment of listening. Today, we talk about an investigation, but don't panic. This isn't the kind of drama where you're fumbling through old receipts or rehearsing lines for a jury. No, this is a much grander inquiry, carried out by the cosmos itself, one that examines not your mistakes but your courage, not your failures but your relentless pursuit of truth. The Buddhists might call it the unfolding of karma, I call it the universe clearing its throat before it announces your vindication. And before you roll your eyes, because yes, I know Sagittarians can't sit still for another sermon about patience and destiny, let me assure you this isn't a pep talk. Think of it as a roadmap drawn in starlight, a fire-lit path leading you into the marrow of your own story. This season isn't just another calendar page. It's the moment when all the loose threads begin to weave into a tapestry that finally makes sense. If you've ever wondered why you've been the loud one at the family dinner, the truth teller at work, or the friend who blurts out what everyone else is too polite to say, now you'll see why. The world is finally catching up to your honesty, and for once, you don't need to apologize for being right all along. So breathe. Laugh a little because humor is your natural armor, and get ready. Your life is not just changing, it's about to blaze into something unforgettable. If you've ever been told you're too much, Sagittarius, congratulations, you've just been recognized for doing your job as the Zodiac's truth teller. You've always been a little louder, a little wilder, a little less interested in playing along with polite fictions than everyone else at the table. While others sit nodding through small talk, you're the one asking the question no one dares to touch. You're the archer who shoots the arrow directly into the silence, and the room gasps because, well, you said the thing. If Sagittarius were a cocktail, it would indeed be 3 parts honesty, 2 parts mischief, and just enough irreverence to make everyone else check whether they're drinking water or whiskey. That mixture makes you unforgettable and sometimes unbearable. I've studied Sagittarians for decades, and I can tell you this, your fire is never random. The bluntness that others find abrasive is really your refusal to suffocate in hypocrisy. The restlessness that drives people crazy is the very fuel that keeps you alive, always scanning the horizon for a more authentic way to live. But here's where the psychology comes in. When people call you reckless or naive, what they're really saying is that they feel threatened by someone who doesn't obey the unspoken rules. Society likes conformity, it runs smoother when everyone agrees to the same fictions. And yet, you, Sagittarius, are wired to rebel against the stale air of deception. That rebellion may have left you isolated, carrying scars from arguments and broken relationships, but it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. In astrology, your ruling planet Jupiter is the grand teacher, the planet of wisdom and justice. Every awkward silence after one of your truth bombs wasn't rejection, it was Jupiter sharpening your bow. Every eye roll you received was a test of whether you'd stick to your compass or fold under pressure. In Buddhist terms, these moments are like koans, those riddles Zen masters give disciples to break their ordinary thinking. People thought you were just being difficult, but the cosmos was training you to become a weapon of clarity. And this brings us to the so-called investigation now unfolding in your life. I use the word deliberately because it has weight, but don't imagine men in suits going through your files. This is bigger than the IRS, bigger than the FBI. This is the universe's audit. Think Saturn, the stern father of karma, leaning back in his chair, spectacles on, reviewing every page of your life's ledger. Think Neptune dissolving illusions like ink running in the rain, exposing what has been hidden for too long. This isn't about catching you in lies, it's about catching everyone else who tried to dim your flame. What you've endured, the gossip, the manipulation, the twisting of your words, none of it has been forgotten. The grand book of karma is meticulous, and unlike human courts, it doesn't get distracted by money, influence, or charm. It records intention, vibration, and truth. And here's the best part, you don't have to lift a finger. You don't need to chase justice down the street with a megaphone. You don't need to fight back with the same cruelty that was shown to you. The universe is already handling it. From a psychological standpoint, this should feel like relief. Think of the stress we carry when we believe we are responsible for correcting every wrong. Sagittarius often feels that weight more than most, because your moral compass is so finely tuned. But liberation comes when you realize you're not the judge, jury, and executioner, you're the witness. You're the one whose role is simply to keep walking, bow in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon. The scales are balancing without your interference. And if lately you've felt that odd mixture of restlessness and calm, like your heart is waiting for something but also strangely at peace, that's not random. That's the signal. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that truth doesn't need defense. It doesn't beg for validation. It simply stands, patient as a mountain, until the fog lifts and the world finally sees it for what it is. Sagittarius, that time has arrived. So laugh a little at the absurdity of it all. The very people who once rolled their eyes at your warnings may soon find themselves cornered by the very realities you pointed out. The same family that called you too intense may start whispering about how you were right all along. And the workplace that dismissed your blunt observations may scramble to rewrite history when the truth surfaces. Don't worry about revenge, it's beneath you. As the Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Instead, take comfort in knowing you don't even need to throw the coal anymore. Time and karma are tossing it for you. Your job now is simply to be Sagittarius in the purest sense. Keep telling the truth, even if your voice shakes. Keep laughing at the absurdities of life, because humor is your secret weapon. And keep seeking freedom, because your soul was never designed for cages. The world is finally catching up to what you've known all along. You were never reckless, never naive. You were a step ahead, a truth teller waiting for the fog to clear. And now, at last, the path is opening, not to punish you, but to prove you were right all along. Let's pause for a moment, Sagittarius, because I know many of you are nodding along right now, but also remembering the sting of those moments when truth felt like exile. You've lived through times when your honesty seemed to cost you more than it rewarded you. Maybe you were the child who couldn't stand the charade at the family dinner table, the one who blurted out the question everyone else avoided: why are we pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't? Maybe you were the employee who raised a hand at work and asked why the numbers didn't add up, only to be labeled difficult or disruptive. Or perhaps you were the friend who refused to join in gossip just to fit in, and suddenly found yourself excluded from the group chat. Those moments of isolation cut deep, and the world made you feel as if you were the problem. But the truth is, you were never wrong, you were simply early. Sagittarius has always been the sign that lives a few steps ahead of the curve. You notice the cracks before the wall collapses, you smell the smoke before the fire is visible, and you sense the dishonesty in someone's energy even while their words sound as sweet as a lullaby. That ability isn't a curse, it's your gift. But of course, it can feel like a curse when no one else believes you. It's like standing in the middle of a crowded room and yelling, "The floor is about to cave in," only for everyone else to laugh and tell you to calm down. Loneliness follows truth tellers, at least until the day the floor actually gives way. Here is where the prophecy shifts: the season of isolation is ending. Those castles built on deception are finally collapsing under their own weight. Those who mocked your vision are no longer laughing, they're scrambling to save face. And you, Sagittarius, the wild-hearted archer, are no longer seen as reckless but as prophetic. What once looked like defiance is now recognized as foresight. This is the paradox of your sign. Society often treats your truth as trouble until time reveals it was the only anchor keeping the ship from drifting into ruin. Let me step away from the stars for a moment and share a few real-world stories. A Sagittarius man once told me how his boss stole his innovative idea, sabotaged the project, and then publicly blamed him for the failure. The Sag was devastated, convinced that the world rewarded deceit and punished honesty. He left the company feeling like truth had no value. But 3 years later, everything shifted. That same company was caught in a national fraud investigation. Every email, every document, every record revealed that this Sag had been the lone voice for integrity. Without lifting a sword, he was vindicated. The very truth that once cost him everything became his crown of honor. Another story, a Sagittarian teacher raised her voice against corruption in her school. Instead of being thanked for her courage, she was demoted, mocked, and cast aside. People whispered that she was bitter, a troublemaker, just someone trying to stir the pot. But 2 years later, a whistleblower surfaced with undeniable proof. Every claim she had made was validated. Suddenly, the woman they called disgruntled was celebrated as the hero of integrity. She hadn't changed, the narrative had. Time had simply caught up to her truth. Psychologists often point out that truth-tellers challenge the comfort zones of groups. Human beings like stability, even if that stability is built on a lie. Sagittarians, with their Jupiterian fire, can't sit in false harmony. It makes your skin itch. You can't play along with the charade because something inside you, call it intuition, call it karma, call it divine guidance, demands that you speak. And while society may punish you in the short run, the cosmos rewards you in the long run. That's where karma steps in. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to argue. It simply waits until the fog of illusion clears. When the timing is right, the truth doesn't knock, it kicks the door off its hinges. That's what you're witnessing now, Sagittarius, the slow-motion crumbling of falsehoods and the overdue vindication of your vision. And yes, there's humor here too, because life has a way of serving poetic justice with a wink. Those same people who once rolled their eyes at your paranoia may now come back and ask for your advice. The same bosses who dismissed your warnings may pretend they always agreed with you. And you, Sagittarius, will probably laugh, shake your head, and mutter something like, "Took you long enough." Humor is your saving grace in these moments because it prevents bitterness from taking root. You don't need revenge when reality itself is the punchline. So if truth has felt like isolation in your past, take heart, it was never punishment. It was initiation. The universe wasn't shutting you out, it was setting you apart. And now, as karma reveals its hand, you're stepping into a season where the very qualities that once made you an outsider will make you a leader. You weren't wrong, Sagittarius. You were early. And history, as it always does, is finally catching up to you. There are moments in a Sagittarian's life when you realize you're not simply carrying your own story, you're carrying chapters written long before you were born. This season is one of those times. What you're feeling, Sagittarius, isn't just the burden of your own truth, it's the echo of voices from your lineage, ancestors who once tried to speak but were silenced. Maybe your great-grandmother was punished for her honesty, shamed for saying what others didn't want to hear. Maybe your ancestors lived in times when political or cultural forces demanded silence, when survival required obedience instead of authenticity. And now here you are, standing at the edge of history, the one who gets to say what they could not. The fire in your chest, the one that makes you restless, uncontainable, and sometimes even inconvenient, isn't just your fire. It's theirs too. You are the cycle breaker, the chosen one whose courage transforms ancestral pain into ancestral liberation. No pressure, right? But truly, this isn't just about you winning arguments or proving your point, it's about ending generations of silence and beginning a legacy of bravery. That's why your battles often feel larger than life. Because they are. You're not only fighting for your own freedom, you're rewriting the entire script of your bloodline. And this timing is no accident. Let's zoom out to see the bigger picture. Astrologers across traditions have named 2025 the year of triumph, and for Sagittarius, that phrase is more than poetic, it's prophecy. Jupiter, your ruling planet, is moving through Gemini, lighting up the skies of communication, contracts, and revelations. Translation? The truth that has been buried is now rising, loudly, and unmistakably. The eclipses that rattled you in 2024 weren't cruel, they were rehearsal drills. They shook your foundations to prepare you for this exact stage. You may soon hear news of an old adversary stumbling into their own downfall, or you may be presented with opportunities that once seemed laughably out of reach. What matters most isn't the event itself but your response. This is not the year to hide, dim your light, or apologize for being right. This is the year you step unapologetically into the role you were born to play. If 2024 was the dress rehearsal, 2025 is opening night, and, Sagittarius, you are not the understudy anymore. You're the star. The curtain is up, the spotlight is hot, and the audience, both earthly and ancestral, is waiting for you to deliver. Now, let's talk about that curious word that surfaced in your reading, arrest. Before you start checking your pockets for bail money, let me assure you this isn't about handcuffs. It's about something far deeper. An arrest is simply when something stops, when the motion halts long enough to break a cycle. For you, this may look like the sudden collapse of a toxic relationship, the abrupt end of a job that never honored your worth, or even the crumbling of a false identity you've been wearing because it felt safer than being fully yourself. Whatever form it takes, the arrest is not punishment, it's liberation. It's the universe stepping in with a firm hand on your shoulder and saying, no more cages, Sag. No more shrinking. You've already survived the hardest prison of all, the prison of being disbelieved. Think about that. For years, your honesty has been doubted, your foresight dismissed, your warnings ignored. That disbelief was suffocating, but somehow you kept breathing, kept moving, kept laughing even. That survival proves your resilience. And now the walls of that prison are falling down. The lies are collapsing. The disbelief is evaporating. You are stepping into open air at last. Humor, as always, is your best companion here. Picture this, you, Sagittarius, walking out of the metaphorical jail of doubt, stretching your arms to the sky, muttering, finally. Took long enough. That's your nature. You turn even the gravest lessons into stories that others can laugh at and learn from. And that's precisely why the universe trusts you with this role. You won't just use your liberation to gloat, you'll use it to inspire. You'll remind others that truth doesn't just set you free, it sets your ancestors free, your community free, and maybe even the whole system that tried to cage you in the first place. So take this moment seriously, but not solemnly. You are the archer whose arrow always aims higher than the horizon. You were never just here to survive, you were born to liberate. The ancestral flame you carry is now blazing. The year of triumph 2025 is your stage. And the arrest you once feared? It is your release. Step forward with courage, Sagittarius. The air is clear, the stage is set, and for once, the world is finally ready for the truth you've been carrying all along. Sagittarius, the question is often asked, what do you do in a moment like this, when the universe itself seems to be shifting the spotlight onto you? The answer, paradoxically, is simple, nothing different than what you've always done. You live your truth. But this time, you don't just talk about it, you embody it, wear it like your favorite coat, move through life with the unapologetic stride of someone who knows exactly who they are. For years, perhaps decades, you have been whispering wisdom from the sidelines, throwing your insights into conversations like sparks in the dark. Now, you're being asked to gallop right into the center, arrows blazing, laughter echoing, reminding everyone that truth doesn't have to be heavy, it can be joyful, it can be liberating, and yes, it can even be funny. Living your truth out loud doesn't mean you become the loudest voice in the room, it means your very presence radiates clarity. When you walk into a space, people feel it, even before you say a word. You are a walking contradiction in the best way, the philosopher who also cracks jokes, the rebel who still believes in love, the seeker who knows the journey matters more than the destination. You remind us all that truth, when carried with optimism, isn't a burden but a gift. And when you feel tempted to defend yourself, to prove once again that you were right when everyone else doubted you, pause. You don't need to raise your voice. Time is your lawyer. Karma is your witness. The truth is its own defense, and it has already been speaking on your behalf. This is where your humor comes in, and let's be honest, Sagittarius, you were born with a comedic streak. Even in chaos, you find the punchline. You're the friend who, when the car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, shrugs and says, "Well, at least the stars look incredible from here." You're the one who turns a disaster into a dinner story, who refuses to let fear win because you know laughter is the antidote to despair. That sense of humor isn't just personality, it's spiritual armor. It disarms enemies, heals allies, and most importantly, it keeps your own spirit unbroken. Psychologists call it resilience, Buddhists call it equanimity, novelists call it comic relief, but you, Sagittarius, simply call it Tuesday. Laughter, for you, is proof that no lie, no manipulation, no unfair judgment ever really succeeded in breaking you. They tried, yes. But your spirit is still wild, still laughing, still running toward the horizon. And that, my friend, is victory. When you laugh, you are declaring to the universe that your freedom is intact. No chain, no slander, no falsehood can silence the sound of your joy. And so, here we are at the conclusion of this chapter. The great cosmic investigation that has been unfolding was never your trial, it was your liberation. The so-called arrest that showed up in your reading is not a punishment, it's your release. And this year, the year of triumph 2025, is not a catchy slogan, it is the fulfillment of prophecy. This is the season where you discover that every wound, every lonely night, every misunderstood truth has been leading to this point of radiant freedom. You, Sagittarius, are not reckless as they once called you, you are radiant. You are not naive, you are prophetic. And above all, you are the chosen one, carrying the torch of ancestral fire, turning generations of silence into a triumphant song of truth. Stand tall, place your hand over your heart, and whisper with conviction, I am free. I am seen. I am unstoppable. Let that mantra sink into your bones, because the universe is no longer whispering. It is roaring on your behalf. Now, as a scholar of the Zodiac and a witness to human psychology, let me add this: freedom is not only about speaking truth but also about savoring life. So laugh loudly, eat the good meal, book the spontaneous trip, fall in love with your own journey. Life is not a courtroom anymore, it's a stage, and you are both the actor and the poet. Don't just fight for freedom, enjoy it. Dance with it. Let joy be your rebellion against every shadow that ever tried to dim your flame. And if this message resonates with you, if it stirs something deep in your fiery Sagittarian soul, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Like this video, drop a comment, and most importantly, subscribe to our community here at Zodiac Talks Tarot. Because this isn't just about listening to the stars, it's about living them together, laughing through the storms, and celebrating the victories as a cosmic family. Your year of triumph is here, Sagittarius. Step into it boldly, and let the world finally see the brilliance you've been carrying all along.